Hey guys, welcome back to Rate of Survival and Fieldcraft. I'm Andrew, and I've got a short video for you guys today going back to that Survival on the Water's Edge class that I was teaching. I dropped that video about 2 weeks ago on the kit I was taking out as an instructor, and I wanted to show you something that I'm going to use from now on that I saw the other instructors doing, and that's using this tactical pouch. Now, sorry I didn't have a video drop last weekend. I was out at my kids' camp out for their troop, and technically they were here first. You guys are second, so we'll just have to deal with it. But I've got this quick video, and what this is just a small tactical utility pouch that the instructors were using to put a lot of the routine items in, and then to either carry this, pull it out of the bag, or detach it because it has MOLLE webbing on it from the bag, and take this to instruct away from our main packs if we drop those at our release point and we're actually out in the water, whether that's water crossing or water safety or using flotation devices, building rafts and crossing that water, or if we're just around the edge of the water because it was long distance. We were hiking anywhere from 5 to 10 miles a day. I think the total mileage was somewhere around 30 miles in about 3 days or so. So that's a lot of walking. So having something like this that we can quickly attach to our belt with just those routine items or those necessary items to instruct at different locations and not have to carry around a 35 pound pack is going to be something that is going to save us a little bit of effort. We're out there doing the same thing the students are doing, and so having something like this is just easy for us to use. So I wanted to go over this pouch, and I wanted to go over some of the items and some of the modifications I've made to those just to show you guys what's behind the scenes as a survival instructor and some of the things that we're constantly playing around with, just developing our kit and looking at those items in different ways to use them for different things, or improvising or adding to kits. And so let's take a look at what I've got right here. All right, so this tactical pouch is just a small utility pouch, about 6 inches by 4 inches and about 1.5 inches or 2 inches in width. It's got that MOLLE webbing. We've got MOLLE on the front, so we can attach smaller pouches to this if we want, or we can put chem lights in here. We can tie it off with the D-rings right here to our belt. This is just a very handy small pouch to have. We have adjustable MOLLE webbing here as part of the buckle system, so we can actually strap this down a little bit tighter and attach it to our rucksack or to our pack frame, whatever we want to do with it. But just a very simple pouch, and you can see I've actually added camo to this because it was bright OD green, and so just a little tip from my recon days and from being in the military is just add some camo to a lot of the pouches if you can, just to help it blend into the environment. Now, with no specific order on the items, that first item is going to be just a small multi-tool. This is that Leatherman squirt that I've had in a lot of my videos. Typically, I'm going to have my multi-tool on my belt, and this is just that Leatherman arc with a good blade on it. My multi-tools need to have scissors. They also need to have some sort of file so we can file down nails or our fishing hooks when we're out at the water's edge, and especially a saw. And then one of the most important items is going to be wire cutters, because we are using wire for traps, but then having that Leatherman to get with those pliers down in the fish's mouth, get that hook out, and then release that fish or keep that fish. But having pliers, a way to manipulate different things out in the field, especially metal objects, going to be really important. On the off chance that I don't have this on my belt for whatever reason, having another small multi-tool like this Leatherman squirt is going to come in handy. Next, just a small spool of Atwood micro cord, about 100 pound tensile strength, and I believe this is about 100 feet. It's got a razor blade for easy cutting, and then even a spot where you can place an extra lighter. Having this cord, very important. And one of my small reels that I showed you guys on Instagram and Facebook is that I actually use this cordage to construct a vertical drop birdcage trap. I'll try to leave a link in that in here, splice it in so you guys can see kind of how I did that. Having small cordage like this saves space. Paracord would be optimal, but micro cord will also get the job done. Next, just a small medicine bottle, also camouflaged, and this is going to have typically lures or bait in it. One thing that I have is just a small crayfish with the sparkles on it. Something I picked up from some of the other instructors is actually using this with a small 110 conibear. And what we do is fit this crayfish right on the trigger, and then we set this up flat, sitting on the water, set so we can use it with the water just barely hitting that crayfish, making it move at night with the moonlight glinting off of it. And this will attract raccoon or maybe even other animals to this trap. They'll hit this, activate it, and then as the trap closes, it actually acts as a foothold trap, keeping that animal in place so we can actually come back and get that animal. All right, then one last thing I keep in here that I thought was a good idea. I picked this up from one of the other instructors, and it's just a piece of mullein, and I've got another piece right here, just the stalk of the plant itself. And what I've done is just drilled holes through the pith of this stalk so we can fit fishing line down it. And then this acts basically as a slip bobber. So I have the weight, have the hook, and then the bait. Swing this out with a hand reel, launch it off into the water, and this will act as a bobber while the line slides through, goes down to the appropriate length. We could have a stopper up at the top, keep that leader length in the water, going after fish in a shallow area, but this acts as a bobber. Keep the line up, but then also as a visual aid so we can see once the fish takes that bait so we can set the hook. Just a way to improvise natural bobbers. All right, next, just a spool of fishing line. What I like about this is that the spool is really small. I like the subdued color of black, but this is about, I think, 6 or 8 pound test, and it's almost 300 yards right here on this small spool. This is originally used for sewing thread, but we can use it for fishing line just as well. But 300 yards of fishing line right here means a lot of different fishing traps or tools to be created, as well as potentially a gill net that we can craft very easily. So having a small spool like this, I've actually done the same thing with wire. So having wire on a spool helps keep this compact and in a nice configuration inside this pouch so we can get at it very easily, and we're not going to have some sort of rat's nest with 300 yards of fishing line. Now, like I said, we have wire right here. This wire is just picture hanging wire. It's non-coated. This is about, I think, 9 feet or so of wire, and it's about 30 pounds tensile strength picture hanging wire. So what that means is that we can actually undo this wire, split it apart in half because of the multiple threads that are on it, and instead of just having one snare that's 30 pound tensile strength, you could potentially have multiple snares that are anywhere from 30 pound tensile strength with the whole piece of wire to dividing it in half for 15, or dividing it 5 ways for 6 pound tensile strength, whatever it is. With this type of wire, now we have a lot more wire in a very small, compact space like this, especially that wire around this spool that we can add to this kit so we can take it out, a small multi-tool, and still process this wire down to set up snares and traps at the water's edge. Just something I thought was really neat. At the school we were using picture hanging wire. It was number 4, but then having something like this gives us the ability to actually process that wire down into smaller sections to go after more game and set up more traps. Next, just a pair of cutting shears, those same ones from my last video. These ones were camouflaged. It's about time to re-camo and re-veg up these cutting shears. But this is very simple and was on the packing list because we can go up, harvest a sapling very quick. A lot of the students were using these to harvest a lot of the willows we made for improvised poncho rafts or for cane poles or whatever they needed. Having a pair of cutting shears like this makes work quick and efficient, taking off those smaller limbs, getting to that longer section so we can use it for whatever we need to. Plus we can process that down. Students use these to create bird traps, which they actually set up, and those bird traps we baited with a little bit of corn, and they actually caught birds in those bird traps that they made. In fact, 2 crows in 1 bird trap. So having something efficient like this, my snipers used this when I was a scout platoon leader, and so having this as a survival tool, especially at the water's edge, makes work a lot easier and a lot simpler. Plus, we used a more powerful pair of these to cut out a frog gig tine from somebody's thumb. I started off with my Leatherman, but that would have taken a little bit of time, and I would have had to dig and kind of twist at that tine spear tip. So we found a pair of stronger cutting shears, not necessarily pruning shears, to finish off that tip after my Leatherman did most of the work. But having something like this, very efficient, very easy to use, one-handed tool, collect and harvest a lot of material very quickly. Next, we've got just a small mesh bag. Now, the reason we have this small mesh bag is because it replaces our stringer line that we can loop through a fish's gills and then toss those fish back out into the water to keep them alive. Eventually that string rubbing against the gills is going to kill the animal. With a traditional stringer, you actually go up through the mouth or the jaw and then out the front, so you're not actually through the gills. But with an improvised stringer using something like paracord or some sort of line, eventually those fish will die. But having a mesh bag like this means putting those smaller fish in here, sealing it off, tying it off again with cordage, and then throwing this out into the water to keep those fish alive. So having a strong mesh bag that's very compactable and fits inside this pouch is a way for us to actually keep those fish alive while we continue to fish at the water's edge instead of going back to get our gear or putting them on a stringer. We can just use a mesh bag. Fish will remain alive a lot longer. Next, this is just a small Dramamine container, motion sickness tablets for kids. This actually camouflaged, this plastic, removing that sticker on the top, is just a great small mini fishing kit. And so you can see there's needle in there, bobber, extra line, sinkers, hooks, even a lure with a jig head. A lot of good stuff in there that we can put in this small little package. And this thing will help replace those hooks if we lose them for whatever reason, or if we need to set up traps. We just have a small little container like this. It's camouflaged, that goes easily right inside this pouch. And then lastly, we have just a small Gamekeeper. Now what this is just a couple of pieces of paracord about 18 inches long, folded over at the top. It's just how I did it. There are zip ties around the loose ends, and then one more zip tie creating a bite of the cordage with a carabiner loop through. This is going to go around our belt or around our belt loop on our pants, and then the string comes down and we just have overhand knots with another zip tie cut off, and this forms a Gamekeeper. So if we take multiple frogs at the water's edge, or we have snakes or whatever we catch, we can simply put this noose over the animal once we dispatch it and then just cinch it down, and it's held in place, similar to something like pheasants or quail that a lot of hunters use. Having this, especially out at night, frog hunting, away from our main pack, when all we have is a headlamp, we can hook this to our belt, and a lot of students came back with frogs on the Gamekeeper, snakes, other animals that they could find or harvest. And we took a lot of frogs and a lot of fish and a few snakes that the students actually cooked up, and that was their food. So having a Gamekeeper, just a way to keep the game and still have both hands focused on that frog spear or that cane pole or whatever you have that you're operating to go after more game. We can continue to add on to this Gamekeeper as well. It doesn't have to be just 5 nooses. It could be 10, 15, depending on how much we actually take from the water's edge. So just a good little trick here that we can add to our kit that helps us transport that animal or those animals instead of putting them in some sort of pouch like this. That is the small tactical pouch with all the stuff that we learned and we used for that Survival on the Water's Edge course that I wanted to share for you guys so you get an understanding of kind of what was going into the course, what students used a lot, and especially what instructors use, and a lot of the modifications and new things that we came up with. All right, guys, so that's everything in the pouch. A very quick, down and dirty video with a lot of explanation today, just kind of going a cappella, talking about what was in this pouch and kind of the things I'm going to carry forward that I learned from the course. Even as an instructor, I still learn a lot going to courses like these, especially specialty courses, where we get to play around and modify things or bounce ideas off one another. And we're constantly learning, which is what I love about being a survival instructor, especially at the Pathfinder School, because I'm always learning something. Every time I go to teach, I end up learning a lot as well. But I really hope you liked this video, down and dirty today. If you did like this video, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, leave me a comment in the comment section down below. I really appreciate your feedback. I want to thank you guys for everything you do for me, for this channel, for your likes, your views, your subscriptions, your comments, your feedback, and your shares. And I'll be back with another video as soon as I can, guys. Thanks.